Sophie and Ranger show us that bravery isn't the absence of fear, it's acting with love despite it. Their story proves healing can bloom from loss, and one small act of kindness can spark a movement. What's your lesson from their journey? Share it in the comments. I can't wait to read your thoughts. If this warmed your heart, hit like and tell a friend who loves a good dog tale. Imagine a chilly fall day in a cozy Tennessee town, where a little girl finds a starving retired K-9 hero in a park. What unfolds is a heartwarming tale of courage, love, and a community coming together that'll melt your heart. I'm thrilled to share Sophie and Ranger's story with you. It's proof that second chances can change everything. If you adore stories of hope and loyal pups, hit subscribe so you don't miss out. Let's get started. The sleepy town of Maple Grove, Tennessee, nestled in the rolling hills of the Volunteer State, woke to a golden October morning in 2025. The air carried the scent of wood smoke and fallen leaves. A crisp bite promising sweater weather. Porches creaked under the weight of rocking chairs as locals sipped coffee, their breath curling in the dawn light. 8-year-old Sophie Carter stood trembling before the town council. Her small frame dwarfed by the polished walnut podium in the old brick municipal building. Her green sweater hung loose, rumpled from hours of nervous waiting, and her hazel eyes darted between the stern faces of the council members. In her hands, she clutched a stack of papers, crayon drawings of a dog, faded photographs, and a petition scribbled with over 2,000 signatures from a town of just 14,000 souls. "My name's Sophie Carter," she began, her voice a whisper until Councilwoman Margaret Tate, a grandmotherly figure with a soft spot for kids, leaned the microphone closer. "I'm here about Ranger." A murmur rippled through the packed chamber, the wooden benches groaning under the weight of curious onlookers. Everyone in Maple Grove had heard of Ranger by now, a once majestic German shepherd whose ribs jutted beneath a patchy coat. Now resting on a faded quilt at the back of the room beside Sophie's father, Daniel. Sophie swallowed hard, her gaze flickering to her dad's tense face, his calloused hands clasped tight with worry. 39 days ago, I found him starving in Oakwood Park," she said, her voice growing steadier with each word. "If you take him away now, he'll die, and so will other dogs like him that nobody cares about." She locked eyes with the man at the council center, Thomas Grayson, a towering figure in a crisp suit, his Grayson Enterprises logo plastered on everything from the fire station to the diner's napkins. "And I know why you want him back, Mr. Grayson," she said, her small chin lifting defiantly. "I know what you're hiding." The room erupted in gasps, whispers buzzing like bees in a hive. As Sophie's words hung in the air like a thunderclap. Sophie hadn't always been the brave girl who stared down town councils. 2 years earlier, a fire at the old Grayson textile mill had ripped her world apart. Her mom, Laura Carter, was Maple Grove's heartbeat, a paramedic and rescue coordinator whose calm voice guided firefighters and K-9 units through chaos. That night, Laura stayed too long. Ensuring every worker escaped the inferno, but the flames claimed her before she could follow. Sophie, just 6 then, watched from the crowd as sirens wailed, her mom's green jacket vanishing in the smoke. After that, Sophie shrank into herself, quiet, withdrawn, a shadow flitting between her bedroom and school. She clung to a box of keepsakes under her bed, a singed patch from Laura's uniform reading Maple Grove Rescue. A locket with her mom's photo, and a stack of Polaroids from happier days. Each night, she'd trace the embroidered letters, whispering, "I miss you," as tears stained her pillow. Daniel Carter, a mechanic at Tate's auto shop, bore his own scars. Laura's death left him adrift, drowning in oil-stained coveralls and late-night repairs to avoid the silence of their modest bungalow on Elm Street. He'd heat up microwave dinners for Sophie, but they ate separately, she at the kitchen table, he in the garage, 2 souls orbiting a void where Laura once stood. Her name was a ghost they rarely summoned. As if speaking it might crack the fragile peace they'd patched together. Ranger's story was a different kind of tragedy. Once the pride of Maple Grove's K-9 unit, the German Shepherd was a local legend. With his keen nose and fearless spirit, he'd unearthed 15 survivors from collapsed barns and storm-wrecked homes, tracked 12 lost hikers through the Smokies, and famously hauled a toddler from icy Cedar Creek, earning a front-page spread in the Maple Grove Gazette. Kids waved at him during 4th of July parades, and retirees swapped tales of his heroics over coffee at Rosie's Diner. His amber eyes sparkled with intelligence, his black and tan coat gleaming as he trotted beside his handlers. But the mill fire broke him. Laura had been his partner that night, filling in for his regular handler, and something went wrong. Ranger returned with burns and a haunted look, flinching at smoke, freezing in tight spaces. Labeled unreliable, he was retired at 8 when Grayson Enterprises privatized the town's emergency services, taking over the K-9 unit with promises of efficiency. Henry Dawson, a 70-year-old ex-trainer with a grizzled beard and a limp from an old injury, found Ranger 3 months ago behind Rosie's Diner. Living in a sagging trailer near Oakwood Park on a pension that barely covered his coffee, Henry spotted the dog rummaging through trash, his once proud frame skeletal. He shared his canned soup and stale bread. But it wasn't enough. Unknown to Sophie, Thomas Grayson, Laura's estranged uncle, ran Grayson Enterprises. He'd cut ties with Laura years ago over a family feud, building his empire while she built a life of service. Ranger's abandonment was just one casualty of his bottom line. Saturday mornings were Daniel's ritual, a pot of coffee strong enough to peel paint, the Gazette spread across the kitchen table, and NPR humming low while Sophie slept. But that October day, she burst in at 6:30, red coat zipped tight, her knit cap slipping over her messy braid. "Dad, can we go to the park? I need leaves for a science project." Her voice danced with a spark Daniel hadn't heard since before the fire. Weekends had been a blur of indoor quiet, books, PBS documentaries, rare library trips, but her eagerness was a lifeline he couldn't ignore. "It's barely 40 degrees, he grumbled. But her pleading eyes won. "All right, bundle up." Oakwood Park glowed with autumn hues, maples blazing red, oaks dropping amber leaves. Sophie darted ahead, scooping up treasures for her project, while Daniel trailed with his thermos, steam curling in the chill. They'd nearly looped the pond when Sophie froze, leaves spilling from her hands. "Sophie, what's wrong?" he called. Jogging over. Her gaze was riveted on Henry Dawson, slumped on a bench by the duck pond, a gaunt dog at his feet, ribs stark, coat dull. "That's Ranger," she whispered, voice quaking. "Who?" Daniel asked, but Sophie was already moving, drawn like a moth to a flame. "Hi, Mr. Dawson," she said softly, kneeling beside the dog. "That's Ranger, isn't it? Mom had his picture." Henry looked up, startled, his watery blue eyes widening. "You know him, kid?" Sophie reached out, palm up, her breath catching. Ranger lifted his head, nostrils flaring as he sniffed her scent. A flicker crossed his amber eyes, recognition, maybe trust, then he licked her hand, a tentative gesture that broke her heart open. "He was on Mom's team," she said, tears brimming. "I saw him in her stuff." Daniel's throat tightened. After the fire, the rescue team had returned Laura's keepsakes, a box of commendations, photos, and a clipping of her with Ranger, pinned to Sophie's wall. She'd memorized every detail, a silent vigil to her mom's memory. Henry gripped the frayed rope leash, his knuckles white. "Found him 3 months back, scrounging behind the diner. No collar, just bones and fur. Been splitting my meals, but..." He shrugged, helpless. Sophie brushed Ranger's matted coat, her fingers catching on a tarnished tag buried in the filth, K-9 Unit 512, Maple Grove Rescue. "Look, Dad," she gasped, squinting at the engraving. Daniel knelt, confirming it. This was Laura's dog. "Mr. Dawson," he said hesitantly, "would you let us take him? Get him to a vet?" Henry's eyes glistened. "You'd do that? Care for him proper?" Sophie's plea sealed it. "Please, Dad, he saved people like Mom." The walk home was slow, Ranger limping, Sophie whispering encouragements. "You're so brave. We've got you." At their gate, Daniel paused, the weight of vet bills and responsibility looming. Sophie looked up, resolute. "Mom would have done it." He nodded, pushing the gate wide. Letting his daughter and the dog who'd once stood by his wife step into their lives. Inside, Sophie knelt by Ranger, stroking his ears. "You're home now," she said, and for the first time in 2 years. Her smile reached her eyes. The Maple Grove Veterinary Clinic hummed with Monday morning bustle, its antiseptic tang mingling with the faint musk of pets. Sophie perched on a cracked plastic chair. Her sneakers dangling, Ranger sprawled at her feet on a borrowed blanket. His ears twitched at every clatter, nurses bustling, a cat yowling in the back, but he pressed against Sophie's legs, trusting her presence. Daniel paced by the reception desk, scribbling on intake forms with gaps he couldn't fill, age, shots, history, all unknowns. Dr. Rachel Evans, a wiry vet in her 50s with salt and pepper hair tied in a practical ponytail, approached with a warm smile. "So, this is Ranger?" She knelt, meeting his wary gaze. "May I?" Sophie nodded, her hand steady on his scruff as Rachel ran gentle hands over him right there in the waiting room. "He's anxious, let's keep it calm," she said, checking gums and eyes. "Malnourished, dehydrated, he needs a full exam." In the sterile exam room, the truth unfolded like a sad song. X-rays revealed old rib fractures, poorly healed, and a suspicious mass near Ranger's spleen. Blood work flagged anemia and kidney strain. "This mass worries me," Rachel said, pointing to a shadowy blob on the screen. "Could be hemangiosarcoma, cancer common in shepherds. We need a biopsy, and if it's malignant, surgery within 30 days. Daniel's stomach dropped at the cost, thousands they didn't have. Not with his mechanic's paycheck stretched thin. Rachel's voice softened. "I knew Laura. She brought the K-9s here for checkups. Ranger was hers, wasn't he?" Sophie's head snapped up. "You knew Mom's dogs?" Rachel nodded. "Till Grayson Enterprises took over last year and switched to their own vet crew." Her lips tightened briefly, a flicker of disdain. That night, Daniel sat at the kitchen table, Laura's old files spread before him like a treasure map. After the fire, he'd kept everything, reports, medals, photos, unable to let go. Now he hunted for Ranger. A 5-year-old training log glowed with pride. K-9 Unit 512, Ranger located a test subject in a collapsed barn in 4.1 minutes. Exceptional focus, recommended for advanced duty. A photo showed Laura grinning beside a robust Ranger, both dusty from a drill. But post-mill fire, the tone shifted, PTSD symptoms, freezes in smoke, hesitates in confined spaces. Retired to Grayson Enterprises. No follow-up, just a cold transfer order. Daniel's jaw clenched. Ranger hadn't retired, he'd been discarded. Word of Ranger's rescue spread like wildfire through Maple Grove's tight-knit streets. Mrs. Ellis, their gray-haired neighbor with a knack for knitting, dropped off an orthopedic dog bed her late beagle had loved. "For his joints," she said with a wink. Jimmy Tate, a lanky teen from Daniel's garage, hauled in a sack of premium kibble his mom had bought. By afternoon, a steady stream of folks knocked, some with treats, others just nosy. But not everyone cheered. Nancy Harper, the neighborhood watch captain with a clipboard always at the ready, cornered Daniel by the mailbox. "That dog went unstable after the fire," she said, arms crossed. Safe for Sophie after all she's been through? Daniel bristled. He's healing, Nancy. Not dangerous. She huffed off, but whispers grew. At Rosie's Diner, the hardware store, the school pickup line. Parents fretted about that damaged dog near their kids. Then came the letter, crisp on Grayson Enterprises letterhead. K-9 Unit 512 remains our legal property. Return immediately or face action. It cited contracts and liability, a thinly veiled threat. Daniel dialed Mike Russo, a college buddy turned small-town lawyer. They're scared, Mike said after a quick read. What are they hiding about that dog? As Ranger snored by the couch, Sophie reading him the adventures of Rin Tin Tin, Daniel's mind churned. What tied Ranger to Laura's last moments? Sophie's third-grade class buzzed Tuesday as she unveiled her science project, a poster board plastered with Ranger's drawings and Gazette clippings of his heroics, headlines like K-9 saves family in storm and local dog pulls child from creek. He saved people, she said, her voice cutting through the chatter, louder than her usual mumble. Now he needs us. She listed his vet needs, biopsy, surgery, meds, and held up a mason jar labeled Save Ranger Fund. Ms. Jenkins, her soft-spoken teacher, tossed in $5. By lunch, it jingled with $42.13 in crumpled bills and coins. Ellie Hayes, the class chatterbox with a cascade of blonde curls, slid onto Sophie's bench. My dad runs the Gazette. He'd love this. Sure enough, Wednesday brought a knock, reporter Tom Hayes, notepad in hand. Daniel hesitated, protective. But Sophie's pleading eyes won. Thursday's paper screamed, Rescue Hero Fights for Life, with a photo of Sophie and Ranger. Donations flooded in, kibble from the pet store, rehab sessions from a retired trainer. Cash stuffed in envelopes. Henry Dawson hobbled over Saturday, showing Sophie how to brush Ranger's coat. Slow from the haunches, he rasped, guiding her small hands. See? His shine's coming back. After 3 weeks of care, Ranger's transformation flickered, thinner but glossier, his eyes tracking Sophie with quiet trust. The first time he fetched a tennis ball, dropping it at her feet with a soft whine. She burst into tears, hugging him tight. Daniel watched, heart swelling. Sophie's shell was cracking, her old giggles peeking through. But shadows clung. Ranger flinched at sirens. Cowered from barbecue smoke wafting from Mrs. Ellis's yard, woke whimpering from nightmares. One evening, Daniel found Sophie on the kitchen floor, Laura's rescue album open. They were a team, she said, pointing to a photo of Laura and Ranger after a drill, both grinning. Like us now. Later, alone, Daniel flipped through, Ranger young and eager, then seasoned and steady. What broke him at the mill? Friday brought a Gazette bombshell. Grayson Enterprises boasts profits after slashing K-9 costs. Thomas Grayson crowed about streamlining outdated programs, code for dumping dogs like Ranger. Daniel's anger flared as Ranger's biopsy loomed, funds short. A new letter from Grayson's lawyers landed, return K-9 Unit 512 in 48 hours or face legal action. That night, a suit. Richard Tate knocked. He's our property, he said, voice smooth as ice. You dumped him. Daniel shot back. Tate spun a tale, Ranger escaped during transport. Lies, Daniel hissed. He was half dead months later. Tate left, unfazed, as Sophie's lullaby to Ranger drifted out, a melody Laura once sang. Saturday dawned with posters plastering Maple Grove, Help Save Ranger, Sophie's school photo beside Ranger's. Fundraiser details bold. No one claimed credit, but the town rallied, radio buzzed, TV crews rolled in, the Save Ranger fund swelled. At the council meeting, Daniel planned a quiet pitch. But Sophie insisted, he's my dog. The room overflowed, voices clashing. Nancy warned of risks, a vet teacher praised Ranger's recovery. Sophie stepped up, voice small but fierce, before Ranger. I didn't talk much. After Mom died, everything was wrong. He made it right. He saved people, now we save him. Thomas Grayson rose, cold. We're filing an injunction. He's ours. Dr. Rachel whispered, biopsies in, surgery's urgent. Time ticked down as Sophie clutched Ranger's leash, eyes blazing with resolve. Maple Grove's courthouse, a red brick relic from the 1800s. Buzzed with tension Monday morning. Benches groaned under townsfolk, walls lined 3 deep with latecomers. Judge Clara Thompson, a no-nonsense widow with a steel-gray bun, surveyed the chaos over her glasses. This is a courtroom, not a free-for-all, she barked, gavel poised. Grayson Enterprises lawyers, Ellen Pierce and a junior in matching gray suits, sat smugly with leather portfolios. Across the aisle, Daniel flanked Sarah Lopez, a fiery local attorney who jumped in pro bono after Sophie's TV plea aired on Channel 5. Sophie sat between them, small in her green sweater. Hands folded, Ranger safe at home with Henry under strict orders to rest. Case 512-25, Grayson Enterprises vs. Carter. Pierce rose, heels clicking. K-9 Unit 512 is our property. Never sold or gifted. We demand its return. Sarah shot up, her petite frame belying her courtroom grit. They abandoned Ranger, forfeiting rights. We've got proof of systemic neglect, ethical breaches. Maybe crimes. Pierce scoffed, irrelevant accusations. Judge Thompson cut in, ownership first, Ms. Lopez. Pierce flashed Grayson's K-9 contract, a dense web of legalese. Sarah countered with Henry's affidavit, Ranger found starving. Tag intact, and photos of his skeletal frame. Thomas Grayson took the stand, his tailored suit gleaming, voice smooth as bourbon. Retired K-9s go to adoption or specialized care. Ranger escaped during transport after a minor crash. Sarah pounced, no crash reports. Search logs for your valuable asset? Grayson shifted, not with me today. Sophie testified next. Climbing the stand with solemn grace. Ranger's better now, she said simply. He plays fetch, sleeps by me. He's happy. Pierce softened her tone, he's trained, ever scare you? Sophie shook her head. He worked with Mom. He's brave. Dr. Rachel followed, her calm expertise damning. Ranger's malnutrition, untreated fractures, and neglect spanned months, not days. Then came Jim Brooks. A stocky ex-handler with a buzz cut, fired by Grayson after the takeover. They slashed K-9 budgets, he said, voice steady. Old dogs, injured ones, they went on a list. Reassignment. They called it, but we knew, those dogs vanished. I refused to ditch 3 at an empty lot, got canned. The room exploded, gasps, shouts, till Clara's gavel thundered. Pierce. Flustered, huddled with her team, then offered, we'll transfer Ranger to the Carters, with conditions. Sarah demanded, full disclosure on other K-9s, medical funds for Ranger's neglect. Clara set a ruling for dawn. That night, Ranger faltered, barely eating, breaths shallow. Dr. Rachel called, urgent, surgeries now or never. As Daniel scrambled, news hit, Grayson whistleblowers expose K-9 scandal. For ex-employees, led by Jim, spilled financial records, K-9 funds siphoned to bonuses. Grayson folded, Ranger's theirs, medical covered, a Laura Carter K-9 fund launched with $200. 000, but Ranger's life hung by a thread. The clinic glowed in pre-dawn hush, fluorescent lights harsh against the dark. Daniel sat, coffee cold, as Sophie slept fitfully on a couch. Clutching Ranger's collar, its 512 tag a talisman. Surgery dragged, 4 hours, then 5. A vet tech emerged, grim, the mass was huge, bleeding's tough. He's weak. Sophie woke. Pacing, then wrote Ranger a note, "You're my hero. Be strong. We're here." 6 hours in, his heart stopped, revived, but fragile. At dusk, Dr. Rachel appeared, exhausted but hopeful. "He's awake, fighting." Sophie rushed in, gowned up, and knelt by his crate. Ranger's eyes fluttered, tail wagging feebly. "He knows me," she whispered, stroking his head. Thomas Grayson slipped in. Rumpled, no tie. "I'm Laura's brother," he said, voice low. "Estranged years, didn't know she'd died till court." "I'm sorry." Daniel's anger softened at his eyes, Laura's eyes. "Wait here," he said. Then alarms shrieked, smoke in the west wing. Ranger, hours from surgery, staggered up, barking toward it. "He's crazy." Thomas yelled, but Daniel saw purpose. They followed Ranger's limp to a storeroom, smoke thick, a smoldering outlet sparking. Behind a cart, Ellie's little brother, Timmy, coughed, lost in the chaos. Thomas scooped him out. Daniel doused the flames. Ranger stood guard, trembling but resolute. Outside, paramedics swarmed, news crews filmed. Sophie hugged Ranger, "You knew, still a hero." Dr. Rachel checked him. Awed, stitches held, miracle. Thomas, shaken, said, "I get it now, Laura's work, these dogs. I'll fix this." Sophie eyed him, "You're my uncle?" He nodded. "Then help us," she said. In the fading light, a family reformed, forged by a dog's unbreakable heart. 8 months later, spring painted Maple Grove in soft greens and lilac blooms. The courthouse, bathed in morning sun, hosted a new scene, the Laura Carter K-9 fund launch. Judge Clara Thompson presided, her sternness softened by a rare smile. "This nonprofit is established with $600,000, she declared. Gavel striking, thanks to Mr. Grayson's amendment. Cheers erupted, supporters packed the room, spilling onto the steps. Daniel addressed the crowd, voice firm, "This honors Laura's belief, service deserves care. No animal who gave their all should be tossed aside." Sophie, in a green sundress, stood proud beside Ranger, his coat gleaming, a retired K-9 hero vest snug over his healed frame. Thomas stepped up, tie loosened. Grayson Enterprises has new policies, retirement benefits, adoptions, lifetime medical care, overseen independently. We failed, never again. He'd overhauled his company, execs fired, himself stepping back to focus on the fund and Sophie, the niece he'd reclaimed. The fund had rescued 12 K-9s, Henry training volunteers at its farmhouse HQ, a sprawling place with kennels and fields. Sophie thrived, her science project on working dogs won district gold, her once quiet voice now a beacon for Ranger's cause. A year from that park day, their backyard bloomed with a Rangers Gotcha Day bash, streamers, balloons, a banner swaying in the breeze. Neighbors, fund backers, even Nancy Harper, now a volunteer, mingled, swapping tales. Sophie climbed a chair, waving for quiet. "Thank you for coming," she said, clear and strong. "A year ago, I found Ranger needing help, but he helped me more. He taught me bravery's doing right, even scared. He saved Timmy at the clinic, despite his fear." She grinned, "We've saved 15 K-9s, and next month, I'm training with Officer Tate's pup, Scout." Cheers rang out, Officer Tate saluting with his young shepherd. Daniel and Thomas sat on the porch. Lemonade sweating in the heat. "Laura saw good in broken things," Daniel said, eyes on Sophie showing kids Rangers sit stay. Thomas nodded, she gave second chances, like Sophie gave Ranger. Like he gave us. In Daniel's pocket, a Gazette clipping, Laura's legacy, showed Sophie with a rescued lab's new owners, a testament to their journey. Night fell, guests trickling away. Sophie curled by Ranger on the rug, dozing as Daniel draped a blanket over them. A new photo graced the mantel, them at the fund's opening, beside Laura's portrait, a chapter built on love enduring.